Welcome to my podcast. This is my podcast. It's called the Speakeasy Comedy Podcast.
It's so nice to have you on the podcast. It's so nice that you're here. Ladies and gentlemen, Ben Cannon, everyone. Yay! First of all, what I'll ask you is, how do we get a hold of you on social media? What's your handle?
I just have Facebook. Like, if you want to see a clip of me, just go on YouTube and look up Ben Cannon Comedy or Ben Cannon Stand-Up.
This is the 9th podcast. This is podcast number 9. You said you would come on by podcast number 10, so you came one podcast early, and I appreciate that, Ben.
Oh, I'm glad I met that target.
Yeah. Ben Cannon is my absolute favorite comedian in all of Calgary, and he has been ever since I met him. Can you tell me a little bit about how you got started in comedy?
I've been thinking about this a lot recently. Like, when did it start? When was the nexus of it? It was with my dad, and you gotta understand, my dad was a great guy. Had high expectations of me, but wasn't so disappointed whenever I altered those expectations. Like in the following story, when I was like 2, I don't know, just starting to like talk and walk around and stuff. Then my dad was, an adamant baseball fan for his entire life. Loved the Detroit Tigers. And so he set me up on the T-ball with like a little bat. And he said, "Okay, son, keep your eye on the ball." And then when he said to keep my eye on the ball, I dropped the bat and went over and put my eye on the ball. Which, I don't know if it was an intent. I don't know. So much of my comedy career is not knowing if I understand my own jokes.
I love that story, and that is such a Ben Cannon thing to do, is to keep your eye on the ball, literally. I remember Ben Cannon would come in, and you had this big afro. You had this great curly hair, and I loved your mannerisms and your energy. This is about the time that tapping your debit card started to become a thing. Like, it wasn't just the chip card anymore. It was tap.
I go into the Shoppers. I tap it, right? And I'm happy. This is like a director's cut of this joke where I'm telling it. So I'm tapping at the Shoppers. Then I go across, get a coffee, boom, I'm tapping. Then I go to the grocery store. I put it out all on the conveyor for the world to see. And she says to me, "Sir, we don't have the tap feature yet. You're gonna have to swipe." And then that's when I get flustered and mad. I go, "Swipe!" Next thing I know, you're gonna tell me to insert, and I'm about to insert my way on out of here. And she says, "What?" And I say, "But I'm already on my hoverboard." And I flew.
Were those hoverboards even trending yet? The ones that are like have the blue sides and they're like this big?
Oh, they were for me.
Really?
I was tempted by the hoverboards until I saw those new big wheels that you can just ride on. Those are cool.
Those are really cool.
Is that what you call them? A big wheel, or does it have some other name?
That's what I'm calling it. It's a big wheel. But I saw one guy.
Did you see the guy? Wait, maybe we're talking about the same guy. Who's like, he's on a big wheel, and he was so decked out with like motocross
and
like
all
just,
the pads and
and he's just like standing there, like, you have to keep your balance when you're on those big wheels. Very intimidating. He looked like he could be a superhero of some kind, like if in Dark Knight when the Batmobile breaks apart and it's just a bike, then maybe the bike could break apart and it's just one wheel, and that is what we saw, right?
Because he's Batman.
Who's my favorite comedian? It changes here and there, but I prefer to like give a top 5 that has remained consistent.
Let's hear it. Yeah, top 5.
Dave Chappelle, Maria Bamford, Robin Williams, Patrice O'Neill, John Mulaney.
Mark Normand.
Yeah, Mark Normand's really good.
You kind of remind me of him. You kind of look like him. You also remind me of Adam Sandler and Ben Affleck mixed together.
Yeah, you've told me these physical comparisons before. The one that I used to get all the time was Paul Rudd.
Okay.
I have this whole thing about looking a bit like Paul Rudd, but obviously not as attractive, right? That's where a lot of my body image issues stem from, right? Is it like, how could I be more Rudd-like? He still looks so... I look older than Paul Rudd.
I do not agree with you. You have a great face, Ben. You have a great face. You have kind eyes and a sweet ass.
urgency.
Like, one thing I think maybe they should have done for the pandemic is, like, maybe Hollywood at that point should have been like, hey, let's take a pause. There is so much to watch that even if we stopped all production of everything today and just did that for like 5 years, it gives human beings a chance to go back and, like, oh my god, we've had like what, 70, almost like 100 years of just constant content.
Totally.
And it creates this like ridiculous sense of urgency to see the newest thing when like nobody appreciates things from the past are also good. New things are good. There's just less of new things because they're new. So I like all stuff, but most stuff is old stuff.
That's
so...
true. That's true. Can I ask you about this timeline thing that you're talking about, the new stuff? So the UFC fight between Dustin Poirier and Conor McGregor was last Saturday, correct?
Yes, yeah.
So I didn't see any posts about the injury that McGregor received until like yesterday morning.
I saw that too.
I didn't see, first of all, it looks completely photoshopped, like his leg all went squiggly. It looked like a TV effect to me. And it just looked kind of fake. But just speaking to what you just talked about the timeline of how things transpire and how new people like new stuff, I asked someone about that yesterday morning, and they're like, bro, that was like 4 days ago. I'm like, what the fuck? Is it up to me to be like, what's the cutting edge of everything that's coming? I have to know within 10 minutes when something drops, otherwise it's not important anymore.
There is good reason to be urgent sometimes.
Sure.
Maybe even most of the time these days, where there are many problems out there that demand our attention. But every individual knows that they are not working at their highest potential if they are like
always looking at the new stuff.
I've just been thinking a lot about urgency lately as a like one movie from the past. Don't worry, it's way in the past, like 2013 or something. The Wolf of Wall Street is about urgency as a salesmanship tactic. What that movie is about at the end of the movie, I think, is that it harkens back to a prior scene in the movie that doesn't seem that intense as all of like the craziness going on, where Leonardo DiCaprio's character, Jordan Belfort, is trying to teach his salesman, and he says, sell me this pen, right? He holds a pen in front of someone and says, sell me this pen. And then the first couple people who try are like, oh, it's a great pen, world class, number 1, A-rated, and it's like, no, that's all bullshit. And then he gives his pen to his drug dealer, John Barenthal's character, amazing. And he's like, sell me this pen. And John Barenthal goes, oh yeah, I can sell you this pen, just could you write down your name for me real quick? And he's like, oh, I would, but I don't have a pen. $5, right? You create the need for it. But then at the end of the whole movie, the real Jordan Belfort makes a cameo to do the same practice with people who are just sitting there watching and listening, right? Did I talk to you about John Wick yet about this? Like, do you know about the Sigma male?
No.
So
Sigma as the symbol, right?
Yeah, so do you know like red pill? Like alpha males are out there crushing puss, PG-13. Does puss count as PG-13?
Pussy, yeah, pussy.
And then beta cucks are paying men to have sex with their wives in front of them. On this cruel, horrible scale, there exists not something higher than the alpha, but something kind of beside the alpha that's outside of the hierarchy, known as the Sigma male, who does not behave necessarily like an alpha in some ways, but in some ways is like cooler than an alpha. And it comes down to a lot of it is like the loneliness they feel from being a cool Sigma. Like the whole red pill thing with it is just very much like, look, I'm not an alpha, okay, but I think I could be a Sigma if I just started working out. And so the archetype that they select, at least on a lot of the videos, is John Wick, right? Portrayed by Keanu Reeves. Who John Wick the character and Keanu Reeves the man are known as kind of these like notorious loner figures. I mean, not totally alone, but in John Wick's case, yeah, like everybody from his past is dead, right? So all he does
Everything's been taken from him.
Exactly. So like the Sigma male is like, I don't know, interchangeable with John Wick, which to me is funny because if you look at the man, Keanu Reeves, and how he behaves in relation to, like, I'll call it red pill theory, like it's a strand of academia.
Yeah.
But, you know, he's dating a woman about his same age, right? In her 50s, I believe. You know, he has had terrible pain from his past that he's had to deal with in his own way. That's, like, way more, you know, just, like, vulnerable than John Wick, right? Who's just...
Yeah.
All these men who are looking up to John Wick, if they just looked up to Keanu Reeves, then they feel a lot better about themselves.
Yeah. Sure. You've been working out.
I have been getting back into it, but I'm pushing myself again more and more in the gym.
I've noticed.
In the home gym.
It's apparent, yeah. You and I have worked out together a couple times.
Couple times.
Yeah.
Perhaps we will again in the future.
I
did another outdoor exercise, like the outdoor gym that we went to.
Yeah.
I did another one like that yesterday.
Oh, nice.
And
where'd you go? Same place? Or?
No, the one in Lions Park.
Okay.
You know, just across the train station, kind of behind the library next to the mall.
Okay.
And I hit on a woman there.
Oh, just walking up to ladies at the outdoor gym and hitting on them? Casanova over here. Also, do you remember that movie with Molly Shannon and Will Ferrell, Superstar?
Yeah.
Well, the popular mean girl in it, her name is Evian, and one of the disses that Molly Shannon says to her is just like, why don't you go drink a bottle yourself? I thought that was funny.
You know what, Evian? You should be really embarrassed because your parents named you after bottled water.
I love those movies. It's actually kind of a little bit of a dream of mine to, like, do a movie like that with my friends someday, because it kind of seems like that's what they were always up to.
There's a few other Ben Cannons out there. There's a state senator from Oregon. I think there's now a rapper from Florida.
Cool.
And on Facebook, there's a secret There's a secret Facebook group just for other Ben Cannons on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
There's like 20 of us or something.
Nice.
So that makes me feel a little bit like I live in a multiverse.
Yeah, there's
and there's like a group of other Ben Cannons that I can confer with. There was like a video a couple months ago that my friend Joe sent me where it was like a video game review blurb, but the guy's name was Ben Cannon. So I took that video to the Ben Cannon group, tried to figure out which Ben Cannon this was. Nobody knew. It's fine. There's just another Ben Cannon out there who's not in the group. He's the Sigma of the Ben Cannons.
Right, he's the John Wick of the Ben Cannons.
He
I don't know
is.
if you maybe are. But, so where can we see you performing coming up? Are you performing? What's the deal?
Well, I don't want that, like, maybe I should get Instagram again just so that people know that it's my Instagram. Anyways, where am I performing? I don't know. I have no plans to perform. I vaguely want to again. I'm not super in a rush to,
right.
Because of COVID well, not because of COVID restrictions, but just because of COVID generally. Like, I've had my 2 doses of the vaccine.
Oh, you're vaxxed up. Cool.
So, in that sense, I'm good. And to, like, do stuff, or, within the limits of how much stuff you can, I don't know, it's like your personal risk tolerance, right?
Yeah.
Like,
what was the last show that you did?
The last show that I did? Your show.
Was it my show?
Yeah, that would have been the last one, the one that happens here, right?
Yeah, it was in the living room.
I think so, yeah. I had a joke about being like Smaug.
So I don't remember that impersonation, but I do remember you talking about Animaniacs.
Oh, yeah, I did Yakko's World.
Mm-hmm.
United States, Canada, Mexico, Panama, Haiti, Jamaica, Peru. You know that song from Animaniacs?
Do you remember Freakazoid?
Yeah.
Around
Vaguely.
Yeah. Freakazoid, Chimpanzee.
Yeah.
There was Alex the Pretty Good, not Alex the Great. Alexander the Pretty Good.
What? Alex? Oh, I didn't.
They would always make fun of Alexander the Great. They'd be like, he's Alexander the Pretty Good.
I didn't see Animaniac, I didn't see Freakazoid as much. I think that was one of those shows I only ever saw like a couple episodes of.
Yeah. Batman Beyond. Me and my little brother. I had a little brother, so we were super into it.
Oh yeah, Batman Beyond is good. Batman the animated series, because they would draw it on black paper, so
Yeah.
like the color had to rise from the darkness
Oh, okay.
in order for the child to watch the cartoon.
Yeah. Sinister.
And that one, there's an awesome scene. I was talking about this with a friend recently, where Batman goes through every member of the Justice League and explains how to kill them, just in case that's required for some reason, like they turn evil or something.
Okay, yeah.
And so he goes through the whole list, like Superman, Kryptonite, Wonder Woman, like get the lasso or something, right? Just all their weaknesses, and then he like finally explains in his best detail as he can possibly muster how to kill himself if it's necessary.
Yeah. How do you kill him?
He can be. He even admitted that he would be distracted if it was like an emotional thing. If you like had his.
Ooh.
If you had someone who was close to him hostage, then he would be in a vulnerable state, right? Comes back to urgency, right? What is it? What is the Joker's plan? It's always to blow up his girlfriend or whatever, right?
Yeah.
In this amount of time, if you get there, I don't know.
Yeah. The clock is ticking. Which boat is going to explode?
Yeah.
You know, who's going to press the button first?
The Joker, the latest Joker with Joaquin Phoenix, was such a downgrade from Dark Knight in terms of like the mythology of the Joker.
Yes.
But it was a necessary, like, because you don't want people running around thinking they're the Joker. So take the cool Heath Ledger Joker and turn it into the weird Joaquin Joker.
Yeah.
And then you have a good society again.
Do you think that was the intention of that movie?
That's my read of the Joker, yeah. Because, like, the Joker in The Dark Knight is objectively, like, way cooler, more competent, more, like, cool under pressure.
More
just
crazy.
all these things, all these little ways that he's, like, way just cooler to, like, have as a role model. And it's generally a bad idea to have the Joker out there as a role model. So then Joaquin and Todd Phillips, like, it's like taking the piss out of the Joker, I think. Or, like, yeah, I think. I don't know.
I think that movie came out at the perfect time. Yeah. And it's interesting how you think that there was an agenda behind that.
Racism, don't do it.
Do you do any cosplay? You have all this stuff.
I kind of just, if I feel like dressing up, then I do. I could also cosplay as my dead grandmother because of this hair.
Okay.
I could cosplay as, like maybe an anime character, as a black woman. I've done black skin. I've done blackface. I was in a fitness competition last November, and I had blackface on my whole body. So.
Did that? Wow.
I braided hair extensions into my hair, and I looked like an African Caribbean goddess.
The closest I ever came to something like that was, like, I'm a Métis man, and in university, I mean, like, I did wear the, you know, like the headdress that you can buy just at like a costume store, the offensive, stereotypical Native American headdress. I did wear one of those for like a concert one time, but even that, there's like photos of me doing that, and then it like came out years later. Well, it didn't come out years later, it's just that years later was when there were publicity campaigns saying that this kind of stuff is not fun to look at.
I think that if someone did blackface and the joke was so good that it made white and black people laugh, then I think that that's a great thing. I think that unites people over something that is, you know, classically would give people the heebie-jeebies these days, that people would really hate and not like. But if you're doing blackface because you're trying to hurt black people's feelings, then stop.
As far as I know, I haven't done blackface. I don't know.
I have. On my whole body.
I exist in a quantum state of racism. No. No. You know, I try to be actively anti-racist, as we all do.
What do you think of this? That Native people in Canada are going to have their day, like black people in America have had theirs. Like, there's going to be a day where people are like, I want to dance like Native people. I want to sing their music. I want to dress like them. I want to talk like them. You know, just how, like, I guess there was Wiggers.
Yeah.
You know, there's going to be, I feel like being Native hasn't been trending yet.
No.
In a way, it's not cool to be Native.
I think it's really interesting to frame Black people in America versus Native people in Canada. When Turtle Island is the native land of, like, you know, the Native people who are indigenous to the regions of North America. Like, for all the injustice that Black people have faced on the North American continent, Africa still exists.
Yeah.
You know, you could go there and the cultures are, diminished, but still vibrant enough that Africa still exists. Whereas North America is a cultural lasagna of, Native people at the bottom, then other non-white races who are treated differently or less than white because of non-whiteness, then white people at the top. And so, it's that's why I think it's difficult for Native people to talk about fighting on behalf of Black people for repatriation for slavery, for example. Well, what does repatriation for slavery mean? It means that, you want the money that you agree comes from value that was stolen from just by virtue of being in this physical location, right? So, while I believe in Black Lives Matter and, sympathize with the plight of Black people as much as I can without ever being Black, I do think if there's priority of who should be restored first, if you want to frame it that way, then I think I know the answer of the people who there are the fewest of, where, cultures, I don't think it's nothing to say that there are entire cultures on this continent that are endangered, right? That are soon to be no more simply because the people who would have otherwise inhabited those cultural positions don't exist or were killed, found in the mass graves, right? And I know the last time I met with you, I made a very callous joke about the mass graves found at residential schools, because as comedians, that's just what we do. You just try to, it's a selfish thing. It's like, if I can make a joke about Native kids being dug up on a residential school, then that means I have the privilege of being numb enough to it that I can still get through my day without facing you with my intergenerational trauma, right?
Yes.
Perhaps I have suffered traumatic events, but I don't need to make it your problem 100% of the time when I'm looking in your face, right?
So I had Macy Taylor on the podcast a few weeks ago, and she talked about, she works at a homeless shelter, and she has had a lot of things happen in her life, and she also sees people every day that have had a lot of things happen in theirs. And one thing that it struck home with me is she said, everybody's trauma is their own, and perhaps that's not a very popular thing to say when you're talking about things like mass graves and Black Lives Matter and Asian Lives Matter. But it is true nonetheless, and the only way that change ever happens is if I take all my bullshit and I put it on the shelf. I don't close the door on it, I don't stuff it down and pretend like it didn't happen, but it's not helping me grow. The only way that I can grow is if I can put it aside, because if I believe that I am a slave to it, then I always will be.
Yeah.
Slavery is a state of mind. I know that's not a popular thing to hear or say either, but it is true nonetheless.
Well, isn't that a quote from Kanye West?
You hear about slavery for 400 years. For 400 years, that sounds like a choice. You was there for 400 years and it's all of y'all?
I mean, just whatever. People get hung up on who tweeted this and whose hot take was this in order to feed the hot take engine that everybody has of just like, hey everybody, if we just took a second to do this instead of this, then maybe this, and then everybody goes, oh, that's the hot take of the day, because it was under 140 characters, and it makes a complex situation sound pithy and easy to solve for the hot take maker, right?
And all the people who were listening right within the first 10 minutes that it was posted, not 4 days later.
Yeah. It's fine to have a hot take. Don't hate yourself for having a hot take, but perhaps don't, I don't know. Again, I'm the wrong person to be saying this because so we're using the metaphor of if a take is hot, then that means somebody has like an interesting new perspective. Okay, well, I'm terrible at cooking. I don't know what to say. I've tried to present ideas. I've tried to react to news on social media sometimes, and it, even though people tell me positive things to my face, I can sense that I've bothered people with my commentary in the past, so that's why I'm on a podcast talking about my opinion some more.
Well,
I don't know, like, what can you do, right?
You never offended me with anything that you've said. You and I have had a lot of conversations in the past. I do really think that you're too hard on yourself, especially considering what you've been through. So
thank you for saying so, and I received that sort of thing that you just said, too hard on yourself, considering what I've been through. I received that specific feedback enough that it's almost a mark of failure to have to receive.
Okay, sorry.
But,
I'm making
don't worry, I'm not ashamed of that failure, and I'm just gonna take it easy as much as I can.
Cool. Yeah.
I hung out, like, during the pandemic, I think it was like you, a couple other comics I would see as my, like, one person a week or whatever with restrictions, but good to be doing something comedy related again.
Ben, I would like you to join me for my next segment, or my first segment rather, which I like to call Wigging Out.
We also put on wigs.
And pretend we're not ourselves. Living our best life in our minds.
What are...
Okay, I'm Mia Valderramos.
Okay, I'm gonna be my dead grandmother.
You remember the game Convergence?
Yes.
Well, the way that Convergence works is easy. You're just trying to say the same word at the same time.
Yeah.
And you go through multiple rounds where, like, first I'll go one, you'll say two, then together we'll say one, two, three, banana. Microphone and banana.
Okay.
So now the next round we're trying to think of something that reminds us of either microphone or banana or something in between.
Okay.
One.
Two.
One, two, three, Raffi.
Banana phone.
Raffi and banana phone. Close. One.
Two.
One, two, three, children's artist.
Children's artist and stand up.
One, two,
one, two, three,
Brian
Weird Al.
Regan. Brian Regan and Weird Al. I went Regan just because he's clean. Okay, let me think. No, but don't think too hard.
Okay.
One,
One,
two, three.
Random.
See, I thought too hard. Okay, one.
Two.
One, two, three, internet.
Purple.
One.
Two.
One, two, three, Grimace.
Barney.
Grimace and Barney.
Yes.
Close.
Okay,
We're like
okay.
in the same zone.
Right.
One.
Two.
One, two, three, Ronald McDonald.
Fast
Ronald
food.
McDonald fast food. One.
Two.
One, two, three, McDonald's.
We did it!
It's kind of that's kind of cheating,
That was
just
cheating.
because the last one was Ronald McDonald, but it counts.
Can I just
There
say,
you go.
you look like the most beautiful drag queen that I've ever seen.
Thank you.
If I was to give you a name, you would be Ramona. Because you look like, well, you know, the Ramones, that's like a band, right? You kind of look like a...
Oh, trust me, I want to be sedated.
If you were to give me a name, what would my name be?
Oh, a name?
Yes.
Mrs. Buchanan.
To tell you a little bit about my dead grandmother, she died in 2018.
Oh, jeez.
And she was 79 years old. And she was a very proper lady. She really was. She wasn't a fan of profanity. She didn't like swearing. She wasn't like a prude though. I remember the first time that I was just getting into masturbating. You know, I'd hump pillows in the guest room. Like, I don't, you know, And one time I was up there for like an hour and just humping and probably making noises, and she came and she knocked on the door. Sweetie. I'm like, yes. Like, I'm totally caught. I was like, oh. She was like, dinner is soon. And I'm like, okay.
One, two, 1, 2, 3, fire truck.
Oil spill.
Oil truck, fire spill. Wait.
Wow, that really worked.
No, oil, yeah.
Oil spill and fire truck?
1.
2.
1, 2, 3, Brad Pitt.
Jeffrey Epstein.
Jeffrey Epstein and Brad Pitt.
Oh boy, I'm sorry. Sorry, Brad.
1.
2.
1, 2, 3, shotgun.
And I was gonna say
Guitarist?
black guy guitarist,
Jimi Hendrix?
27 years old. Good, yeah. Sorry, I couldn't remember Jimi Hendrix.
I was listening to Jimi Hendrix earlier today.
Which
and
song?
I finally looked like a guy who was listening to Jimi Hendrix earlier today.
I'm definitely gonna cut out the part where I was like, black guy playing the guitar.
Fair enough.
That's something my grandmother would say. No, she would say Negro. He's a nice Negro man.
1.
2.
1, 2, 3, Woodstock.
Beard.
Woodstock and beard.
1.
2. 1, 2, 3, hippie.
ZZ Top.
Hippie and ZZ Top. 1.
2.
1, 2, 3, legs.
I was gonna say, who's the old guy with the braids and smokes pot?
Willie Nelson.
Willie Nelson. And you said braids?
I said legs.
Legs and Willie Nelson.
Because legs is a ZZ Top song.
Oh, okay.
1.
2.
1, 2, 3, NWA.
Malone.
Post Malone and NWA. We're
Okay.
going back and forth. It's okay. If there's sometimes when you get close, then it's sometimes all right to just throw a random word out there just to get it far enough away that it can like spin back into each other
Okay.
again.
Yeah. All right. Like it's a black hole that's whipped a star really far away from it, but then it just comes back right away.
You got it.
Even faster.
1.
2.
1, 2, 3, sunflower.
Ponytail. 1.
2. 1, 2, 3, spring.
Prom.
Spring and prom. 1.
2.
1, 2, 3, spring
summer.
break.
Summer, spring break. Okay, 1.
2. 1, 2, 3, vacation.
Mexico.
Oh, Mexico and vacation.
1.
2. 1, 2, 3, Puerto
Cancun.
Vallarta. Oh. 1.
2.
1, 2, 3, tropical.
Snorkeling.
Tropical snorkeling.
1.
2. 1, 2, 3, the ocean.
Margaritas.
Ocean and margaritas. Okay, 1.
2.
1, 2, 3, Jimmy Buffett. You have to say it at the same time.
1.
2. 1, 2, 3,
Slurpee
megaphone.
machine.
I felt like a megaphone talk. Slurpee machine, megaphone.
Okay.
1.
2.
1, 2, 3,
slush
robot.
Puppy. 1.
2. 1, 2, 3,
Tim
Slurpee.
Hortons. 1.
2.
1,
1, 2, 3,
ice
lemonade.
cap.
Oh.
What? Dude, you're killing me.
It's close. Don't worry.
Okay.
It's all right.
1.
2. 1, 2, 3, Gucci
sugar.
Mane.
Gucci Mane and sugar.
Sure. Oh, 1.
2.
1, 2, 3,
Sugar
Atlanta.
Ray.
Atlanta and Sugar Ray. 1.
2.
1, 2, 3, America.
Twerking.
America and twerking.
1.
2. 1, 2, 3,
Nicki
Miley
Minaj.
Cyrus. Oh.
Yours is way better, but Nicki Minaj?
Yeah, fair enough.
Okay.
2. 1, 2, 3, pop
July
star.
4th.
1.
2.
1, 2, 3,
Kid
fireworks. Fireworks and Kid Rock.
Okay. 1.
2. 1, 2, 3, Pamela
hepatitis.
Anderson. Hepatitis and Pamela Anderson?
Pretty good.
I'm sorry, Pamela Anderson.
Sorry.
That we've come to this point in the Convergence. 1.
2.
1, 2, 3, STD.
Blood for a transfusion.
Blood transfusion, STD.
1.
2. 1, 2, 3,
AIDS.
doctor.
Come on, dude.
1.
2.
1, 2, 3, nurse.
Philadelphia.
Nurse in Philadelphia. 1, 2.
1,
2, 3, hospital.
Sorry, cream cheese is what I was gonna say. 1.
2. 1, 2, 3, bed.
Arteries.
Arteries and bed. 1.
2.
1, 2, 3,
heart
blood.
attack.
Blood and heart attack.
Okay. 1.
2. 1, 2, 3, stroke.
Atrium.
Atrium and stroke. 1.
2.
1, 2, 3, clue.
Aneurysm.
Clue and aneurysm. I think of an atrium like in the board game Clue.
Sure. I like that.
1.
2.
1, 2, 3,
lead
brain.
pipe.
Brain and lead pipe.
Who's the guy who he accidentally exploded something and then a lead pipe went through his head and it changed his attitude from very like docile to very mean, very aggro. Remember that back in the day? It was like when they were doing lobotomies on people.
Sorry, I'm twirling. When I have long hair, I do twirl it.
Yeah.
So now that I have the longest hair, I'm gonna
like
do it.
It's like the day that I met you. You look so good. I feel like you're gonna start telling me about tapping.
La la la.
Ramona and Sheila. I'd say that was a pretty successful segment of Wigging Out.
Wigging out!
We've been talking a lot. We've been verbal. And sometimes we've had a little bit of verbal diarrhea, but that's okay. That's kind of a great segue into my next segment, which is called Diarrhea.
I have a diary.
It's full of verbal diarrhea.
So the way that diarrhea works, these are all the books that I've written in since I was 15 years old. You're gonna close your eyes and pick one, close your eyes, flip through the pages, and whenever you put your finger down, you get to read.
Oh, you've written a lot.
Thank you. Yeah, I hope to one day make this all into a book, verbal diarrhea on the page that you can have. Then you can have diarrhea in your eyes. All right. Okay.
5-star. Police sirens. Riding C train for free. I'm an asshole. I deserve this.
Right. So I got caught on the C train without a ticket, and
I've been
I
there.
was holding a big old grande Starbucks in my hand when the cop caught me.
Oh.
And what I did was I lied. I said, "Oh, I did buy a ticket, but I lost it." He said, "How did you pay?" I said, "I paid with debit." He's like, "Show me your online banking." So I opened it up. Lo and behold, the last thing I had paid for was a Starbucks, which was what I was holding. Now, the police officer could also see how fucking broke I was too, because he's looking at my online banking. So he took a little bit of pity on me and said that I could request volunteer hours rather than pay the $250 ticket, which is what I did. I worked at the Mustard Seed for 1 week before the pandemic started, and it was the best job that I've ever had, mopping floors and cleaning garbage for homeless people.
But it says, I'm an asshole, I deserve this.
I deserve the ticket.
Okay, fair enough.
Don't I seem like a great person?
Oh, sorry.
Yes, close the eyes. Which one?
This one.
Okay.
Looks like it has maybe some, what are these, like antlers?
Antlers. Looks like I maybe lived in Banff when I wrote in that one, because it has like, an arrow and wood on it. Read one sentence.
I'm sitting next to two women banging on and on about their dogs. Probably barking. That would make funny.
So that's a...
That would make sense. That would make funny. If two women were barking about their dogs. That's a pretty cool drawing. Yeah.
Yeah, show it to the camera.
Top.
Okay.
When I became I think this word's sexual being, my dad couldn't handle it. He had it easy for the first 20 years. I was fat all that time.
I was overweight, until I was 20 years old. And then I guess I felt at the time that once I became a sexual being and like lost all the weight and started having boys as boyfriends and things like this, I don't think my dad could handle it. My dad still gave me a curfew. So the group of 7 girlfriends I was telling you about, there was one guy in that group and his name was Dan, okay? And I'll put a picture of him right here because he's my favorite person to this day. So Dan would come over a lot, but Dan would just like to be my friend. We told jokes together. He was like my first comedy friend. Like we would just always do Dave Chappelle, impersonations and things like this. And my dad still gave me a curfew of like 9 p.m. or something, and I'm like, Dad, like I'm fat. Like you don't need to worry. Nothing's gonna happen. It's kind of a long way to say that joke, but anyways, yeah, it's hard to know where the punchline is because there isn't one, but still writing it. Once I got thin, I really started to look a lot like my mom, and my dad and mom haven't spoken like without a lawyer present, I think for like over 20 years now. So I think it was triggering for my dad to see me because I look exactly like him and mixed with the woman that he was in love with and now hates.
You know, I consider my own parental situation tragic, but, you know, there's like all these difficulties that I can't even imagine how all of that must feel.
I mean,
you know,
relatively speaking, not very tragic. I still have both of my parents.
I prefer, I don't like to compare tragedies, because then if I'm complaining about something, then somebody can say, like, well, you know, somebody else has it worse. It's like, yeah, that, for almost every person in the world, that's true, except for the one unknown person out there who is suffering the worst of us all, right?
I think Louis C.K. says, you know, there's some people out there that all they do is die.
Yeah.
Like, they open their eyes, they're like, I'm hungry, and then they die, and that's all they ever do because their life is so tragic. My family situation, my mom and dad, it's tragic in its own way, but I really do feel like by the time I'm 40 and I decide that I want to get married, I can probably put them at the same table. I think it'll be okay. Grief. I want to ask you about your parents.
Yeah, sure. You know, it's been 10 years since my mom died. 2016, 5 years since my dad died. You know, it's sad. Of course it's sad. It'll always be sad that happened to them so early. But I've also, especially due to recent events, like, resolved it in a way that I wasn't expecting.
Really?
Like, I think before, when the world was just normal, before coronavirus, it was, like, easier to focus on myself and my problems and, like, you know, give in to the narcissism of it a little bit, how I'm like this only child who's alone, who just like wants attention and love from like two people who should exist, but they no longer do. So then I bother a lot of other people who don't care about me as much and get into trouble that way. With coronavirus and with the suffering of millions of others, I don't take joy in the suffering of millions of others, but I have new solidarity with the families of people who were lost in coronavirus and people who have new perspectives because of the pandemic. It's a big event for our planet, and I don't want to come out of coronavirus and be like, haha, now that everybody else has someone who recently died, now everybody knows what it's like to be me. But it's like, you know, maybe of all the ways that I've been unfortunate, maybe I was fortunate in this way to be a few years further along in my own grieving process, and maybe somehow that can be like helpful to another person when they talk to me about grief, which they inevitably do, because you get stereotyped, you get put in the box of like, oh, he's one of those death people that knows how to talk when the rest of us who haven't faced as much death like
Have to face it.
Yeah, exactly. I read this book about grief that was written by a comedian named Michael Malone. The book is called Dead Serious, and he, like, as bad as I had it with my parents dying, for him, I believe it was like his parents and siblings that, like, there was like a lot of death in his family and like not a lot of time.
Yeah.
And his book was actually really helpful for me.
What happened to them? How come so close together like this?
I forget all the stories about exactly, like, it's not so much of a focus on like how they died or like the grim aspects of it. It's more like, oh, after they all died, I started listening to Mac Miller more, and here's how much I love Mac Miller and how it fits in with like happy memories from my mom and dad, etc. and stuff, right? It's like the reason people don't like talking about grief or thinking about their own death or thinking about the deaths of their loved ones is because it is a horribly scary thing. But when you talk about it, you don't have to talk about it in a horribly scary way. In fact, it can be tremendously helpful to like find ways to laugh about it, joke around about it, right? Like, remember that, like, okay, what would your parents want from you, Ben? Would they want you to be like going up to people and going, yes, that person is dead, mine are dead as well? Or did they want you to be like, hey, can I tell you a story about my mom's favorite Beatle? She liked George, and these are the songs that she liked. Or like with my dad, you know, like, let's watch a Tigers game in honor of my father. And oh, this is probably what my dad would have said if he was here to watch this game with us about this player or that player, whatever it is, right? Grief is not death. grief is how the living deal with death. So, like, let's live about it, not, like, hold our heads down and just cry all the time and pretend that, like, narrow idea of sadness is what grieving is. I don't know. That's where I'm at with all that stuff right now.
I mean, thank you so much for sharing that. It's really, like I was telling you last night on the phone, your story is so compelling and it's so different from anybody that I've ever met or talked to. You're really a unique person that I've met in my life, Ben, and you're very. I think I said this. I wish that so and so could see themselves through my eyes, because I wish that was the case with you.
Well, you gave me like a nice big compliment, and I would just like to compliment you back and say, like, Tara, like, putting on like shows in your, like, there are many ways that you show your dedication, like, to yourself and your own goals, but also, like, it's encouraging to see what yourself and those goals are, increasingly so, whenever I see you, whenever I talk to you. And
thank you so much. I'm just like glowing right now. I'm like,
you are
compliment me.
Like, you are to me, you say that I'm special or this or that or whatever, but to me, you are someone that I think of like, I can't even talk to Tara unless it's at least a little bit about like something productive that I've done, or like a goal that I've hit, or like I must if I'm to present myself to Tara, I must come bearing at least one like personal achievement or accomplishment or like token of growth,
That's a lot of pressure.
Exactly. You put a huge amount of pressure on me with your compliments. So there you go. That's how that feels.
You're welcome, and I'm so sorry. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today. Yeah, if you think I should be paying Ben Cannon for his time today, the 2 hours of time it took, for him to be with me today, or, the 10 hours that it's going to take me to edit this podcast later, then please donate to Pay the Comedians, and I'll just put a link for that in the ticker at the bottom here. This is my dream. Please help me reach my dream. Maybe I can get a new camera. Maybe I can get a new amp and mic set up for my Speakeasy comedy show, which runs the last Thursday of every month. And this month it's going to be on July 30th, out of my living room or maybe out of the party room downstairs. Either way, it's my dream, so I'm going to keep doing it. Oh, I'm also running a weekly show called Fishbowl.
Yeah, I saw that.
Fishbowl Comedy is going to be making its debut at Koi on 1st Street Southwest.
Check out my underwear.
Oh my gosh, representing today. Look at that. He's always got something up his sleeve, his pant sleeve, his pant leg. Ben Cannon, everyone.
I'll get an Instagram and let you know what the handle is. If I can get Ben Cannon 3000 again, then I'll get that again.
Yeah, at Ben Cannon 3000.
That was my old handle.
Loved it. Thank you so much for being on the podcast, Ben. I really appreciate your time today, and
This is my podcast.
we'll see you out there.
Thank you, Tara.
You're welcome. Bye.
You're gonna get demonetized for this fucking intro.